The only thing necessary for evil to succeed is for good men to do nothing. It's important that people wake up to what is going on. It's time that we read the Constitution. It is error that needs the support of government. Truth can stand alone. That was given to us by Thomas Jefferson. A little while ago, I'd say about 2 weeks ago, I was fortunate enough to go into Boston to celebrate the Boston Tea Party. That was an event that happened many years ago when the people in this part of the country didn't like the fact that they were taxed without representation, that they started feeling the tyranny of this, great regal power called England. And so what they did was they turned around and threw the tea from the East India Tea Company, I believe, into the drink in Boston Harbor. Well, I found out that there were some people there that were actually questioning the 9/11 Commission report, and that their intent was, on this anniversary of the Tea Party, was to take the 9/11 Commission report and throw it into the drink also, saying that it had no value and maybe we should really find out what's going on. So as part of the real story, I went to investigate. Thank you for coming down to Faneuil Hall. This is Daniel Hapney. Yes, I'm here with my patriotic eyes so that I can spend time with you and show you what some patriots here in America are actually doing. 9/11 possibly was an inside job, and that the 9/11 Commission report probably should spend its time in the drink. Yes, we're going to go chuck it in the drink, kind of like the tea. We're going to walk around and meet some people. We're also going to march. We're going to throw some 9/11 Commission reports into the drink. Why? Because we think they omitted data.
Whereas the current administration blocked and delayed for 441 days any investigation into 9/11. Whereas the 9/11 Commission made no effort to determine guilt, no effort at all, and said so, said it was not their mandate, that the 9/11 Commission made no attempt at legal accountability. From the outset, the 9/11 Commission assumed the truth of the official conspiracy theory that is a tissue of lies, that it was supposed to officially investigate, and ignored, distorted, and suppressed all testimony, evidence, and suspects that did not fit its predetermined conclusion, making a mockery of its self-stated mandate to, quote, provide the fullest possible account of the events surrounding 9/11. The 9/11 Commission Executive Director himself, Philip Zelikow, has acknowledged that he is an expert in the creation and maintenance of public mythologies, which the 9/11 Commission, his product, is one. A number of official story hijackers trained at U.S. military bases. The plane into tower military exercises on 9/11, not even mentioned in the report. Why was Bush just sitting in the classroom? Karl Rove himself has said on national TV he was waiting for the drill to be over. Whereas the 9/11 Commission failed to investigate and completely left out of its report any mention of World Trade Center 7, which, though hit by no plane or any significant debris, collapsed at a near free-fall speed on 9/11, similar to World Trade Centers 1 and 2, all three buildings in classic controlled demolition that requires at least 2 weeks, if not more, of pre-placing explosives in a building to which Al-Qaeda, in quotes, could never have had such sustained access.
I'm going to introduce you to Mr. Bob Bowman. Bob, being an ex-Air Force pilot and a retired Air Force colonel, someone who did the job, he's got some questions. He says, things aren't right. Would you listen to a retired Air Force colonel? Would you listen to generals? Okay? Would you listen to professors and scholars and physicists?
What we're here for today is to dump in the harbor crates of 9/11 Commission reports.
What a good use of them. I feel for the harbor, but it's a good use of the report.
Well, we're going to dig them out again.
We are good people.
We don't want to pollute. But we reject the government's official conspiracy theory with regard to 9/11.
I also do.
In particular, my part in it is addressing why there were no interceptors. You see, I'm an old interceptor pilot. I've been through it. I know the rules. I know what it takes. I know how long it takes. And I'm also aware that just before 9/11, in June of 2001, they changed the rules so that no intercept can happen without the personal approval of the Secretary of Defense.
That's an interesting rule change.
It is, and it was one of the key things that prevented us from saving the Twin Towers. Because if that hadn't happened, and if our government that day had just done nothing, ignored all the warnings they got from 11 different countries, and just done nothing and let normal procedures take place, the Twin Towers would still be standing and thousands of dead Americans would still be alive.
I agree with you, because, you know, you can't beat physics.
We need an investigation to find out who the conspirators were so we can toss them in jail and make sure it doesn't happen again.
Maybe some of the great residents of Sharon can help in asking for, and if not demanding, that investigation. And maybe this time it won't be appointed by some political people who might be hiding something, maybe to cover their own derrieres, you know?
But, you know, there is one thing where we do have the evidence, and that's with the Iraq War. Because even if the government's conspiracy theory about 9/11 turns out to be essentially correct.
Okay.
And it was 19 Arabs with box cutters.
Pretty amazing, yep.
Yeah, even if that were the case, our government has exploited this tragedy to have an illegal, unconstitutional, unnecessary war of aggression against Afghanistan and against Iraq.
Oh yeah, it was.
And
that's right.
more of our young Americans have died in Iraq than died in the World Trade Center.
Yeah.
So whether or not our government has any culpability whatsoever for the thousands who died at the World Trade Center, they certainly have culpability for the thousands who died in Iraq. And I believe that we have enough evidence that it was deliberate deception to get us into that war, that we should not only impeach Cheney and Bush and the whole oil mafia, we should indict them for treason and put them in jail for the rest of their lives.
It's rather funny, being an ex-defense employee. I used to work for Generous Dynamics.
Yeah.
And
Me too.
No way, really?
Yeah, I was manager of advanced space programs at Convair in San Diego.
You're kidding me. I was in Pomona for, I don't know, almost a decade. Mostly Stingers, close-in weapon systems, some zero flight time, whatever, you know, having fun, standard
Yeah,
missile.
I did all the advanced space programs.
I like you, Bob.
Communication satellite.
What a guy. You know, and so you do this stuff. I mean, when I was working there, I was building products to hopefully save Americans. Because at some point, you know, the way I could work at GD was knowing that if an American, let's say on a battlefield, had a problem and the red light was flashing, I wanted to provide him the green solution button. And I felt good about that, okay? I'm thinking, hey, if this can save some Americans, now here we are in Faneuil Hall, and I think, you know, I feel as good about what I'm doing now about trying to save Americans.
Yeah.
You know, very few people, at least in my audience, in my local community, understand what's going on.
Well, we need to bring our troops home while they're still alive. That's the way we can support them.
I'm with you wholeheartedly, 100%. The other thing I'd like to look at is, you know, I always believe in following the money, you know?
Yeah.
And I look at the money at different things, and yeah, I don't know Mr. Silverstein from Adam, okay? Yeah. But that always made me wonder. Like I say, I actually woke up on 9/11 because I looked at the damage at the Pentagon, and being a person who actually shot down planes, who tracked and shot at U.S. planes and foreign planes, okay, in test facilities, I'd been to many crash sites. I'd created many crash sites. I'd been with teams, and we go and we look at our crash site because, hey, how well did we hit the target? Did we hit the part we wanted to? The whole fun part. And being at many, many sites, what do I see? I don't see the evidence. You know, they told me, not only in Shanksville, they say a plane, there's no evidence. They show me the Pentagon, and I'm here to tell you, listen, I've taken planes down. They make a bigger mess. Something's up in Dodge. Now, why? You know, you had mentioned, gee, a major change in our foreign policy because of 9/11. You know, all the people were very concerned, and hey, let's go bomb somebody else. Were you aware that there was actually a gentleman who was negotiating for the oil companies to get an oil pipeline through Afghanistan?
Oh, absolutely.
Would you happen to know what his job is now, that he's given up his job as a, as a negotiator?
Well, I think he's the president of Afghanistan.
The president of Afghanistan. Maybe I can get him on the show. We'll get one of those remote links, and we'll ask him, hey, you know, you didn't get your pipeline then, but do you get your pipeline now? You know, it's enough to, you know, upset the Pope. I talked to him, he was upset. Well, I don't know, the Pope doesn't talk, he doesn't call me anymore. But the Pope is talking to Kissinger. We got that going this week. Yeah. I'm so glad you're still breathing vertical and with us.
Thank you.
That's a good man.
I am overjoyed to see this gathering here in Boston, the site of the first American Revolution, and I think we are at the turning point in which we are starting to get the attention of the larger American and world public. It's breaking out in the European media, it's breaking out in the American media. They can't ignore it. All they can do is insult us, as The Nation magazine did in this week's issue, calling us paranoids and cynics. Well, if I were a paranoid, I would think that if I spoke honestly about a subject like this, they might be out to get me. But I'm not that paranoid. And if I were a cynic, I might think, oh, what the heck, who cares, what good is it going to do? Like Homer Simpson said, what are you going to do? But I'm not a paranoid. I don't think they're that likely to take me out. And I'm not a cynic. I think we can actually change the world here. I think it's the people who think that they want to kill us, they are coming after us with box cutters, that you get in the airplane, take off all your clothes, for God's sake, take off all your clothes. Those people are the paranoids. And the people who say, oh, okay, maybe the government blew up a couple of buildings and killed 3,000 people, but what are you going to do? Those people are the cynics. We are not the paranoids and the cynics. We are the fearless people who still have hope for the world.
Hey, Kevin Daniel Hapney, I'm so glad you made it. Can you tell me why you're here and, you know, how I can help the Americans?
Well, I mean, I'm here to help spark the Second American Revolution, the 9/11 Truth Revolution. Boston Tea Party, of course, was the symbolic spark of the First American Revolution, and here we're trying to light the fuse of the next one, a nonviolent revolution to take us off this course towards war and fascism and put us on a course towards peace and justice and just basic decency, the values that this country holds up as its ideals.
Gosh, you know, and it's funny because when you think about years and years ago, the tyranny that these people were facing and stuff, and that now we actually have the same tyranny, things that, to me anyway, appear worse than what Germany was trying to put forth. And, you know, the fact, I think of, you know, these people here, once again, reenacting the Tea Party. Back in the days in the Tea Party, people could be taken off the streets, shipped on a boat over to England to face trial, and not having any jury of their peers, not having the evidence, not being able to get, you know, someone to represent them. With the Military Commissions Act, that we can do that now to other people, let alone our own citizens. So I'm glad you're here.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. And I'm also completely outraged that, you know, habeas corpus, that came in with a Magna Carta, you know, the better part of 1,000 years ago. This administration's thrown out habeas corpus, so they didn't just torch the Constitution. You know, they threw out the whole basis of the rights of man that got started, you know, in England, this basis of our Anglo-Saxon common law tradition. It's all gone. I mean, we're living in a brave new world here, and it's time for us to, you know, stand up and take back our real ideals and our Constitution.
Do you find that, seeing how you've been on major media and stuff, and actually, from what I understand, we're on with Mr. Hannity and stuff, what's your thought of the situation or the condition of our media today?
Well, the corporate monopoly media is, of course, completely pathetic. I mean, they would, you know, Dr. Goebbels, you know, didn't get it down the way they have it down, and unfortunately, they've, you know, narcoticized a lot of the audience. People are staring at the TV with slack jaws and kind of a lot of them being subliminally programmed, even if they don't quite buy it necessarily consciously, it's still controlling their reality. And so we really do have to change that, but it's changing structurally with the rise of the internet.
A beautiful thing.
The internet is now allowing ordinary people to think critically and exchange their thoughts with other people, so we don't need to go through these one-to-many corporate monopoly media anymore. We can now make our own media and go one-to-one, and I think that's changing the way people think. So I think that this TV brainwashing tendency that's been going on since 1960 and that culminated with 9/11 is now ebbing back, and we're going to have a new form of democracy, digital democracy, the next stage beyond the Gutenberg revolution. This is all based on the rise of the internet.
I'm glad you said that, because I always looked up to Gutenberg. Of all the people they say, who really changed the life for humans, Gutenberg was the one who made books cheap, right? He made it doable so that many people could read works, let alone, the ability for more people to read, but just to have libraries, because now once again, now we can mass produce books. Whereas books are what? Handwritten before that? Books could only the rich would have books, so the rich would be the only ones who would have the knowledge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now with the internet, anybody can become the media, and the critical views of what's out there are coming from every direction, and that changes the way people think. Rather than having their thought directed by just one powerful voice, they now are able to choose between many competing voices. And just as Gutenberg put out political pamphlets, he put out Bibles so everybody could read the Bible and interpret it in their own way. Now we're getting the same thing, only more so with the internet. Well, the thing about what you're doing here is that this can now get out there not only on the local cable access, but also it can go national and worldwide thanks to the internet, and it can be archived. And so if people decide next week, hey, what was going on there with that Tea Party, they can dial you up and check it out. So the ability to get at the important information is there now. Of course, we're all drowning in a sea of bad information.
Exactly.
So it's a fight to try to be able to discriminate between the bad and the good. But there's more and more good available. More and more people are waking up and being able to discriminate. As people here are a good example. So we're reaching the point where nobody believes the corporate brainwashing anymore. And once we get there, we'll be in a whole new world. Yeah.
Doctor, just way to go.
Well, hey, thanks.
I appreciate you being alive.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate you being alive too, and you guys putting this out on cable, on the internet. I mean, you're actually doing more than anybody else by taking advantage of these new media. So keep up the good work.
I appreciate it. My big thing, and I'll tell the audience one more time, and that is the only thing evil needs to survive is for good men to do nothing.
We hope that you will recognize the association of patriots and truth as opposed to traitors and lies, and these terms are not interchangeable. To be clear, though, it is only fair to help define patriot. By definition, it is one who loves, supports, and defends one's own country. The heroic participation of many colonists during the American Revolution gives us our other best examples of what a patriot is.
It's a country for the people, not for the government. And that the government serves the people, not the people serving the government. So anyway, I did a couple shows. I did one on money, okay, and the foundation of money, where money came from, fiat money, how that when, many times in history people have made paper fiat currencies, that the values actually went down, and it was a way to enslave the people and steal from them their wealth. And then I followed it up with a show on the Federal Reserve. And I said, well, gee, here we have a private banking cartel. Not that I want to take all this, but anyway. And I went over that in my second show. So can you tell us what you know and what you feel, and maybe why you're here?
Well, I don't like the Federal Reserve System because it's all based on a fiat currency with a fractional reserve banking system. And fractional reserve banking was started by the goldsmiths hundreds of years ago. And what they would do is everybody'd have all this gold, and they'd have nowhere to put it because somebody might steal it.
And you'd have to have armed guards if you want to keep it in your house, right? Because if you had all that gold, you need somebody to protect it.
Yeah, exactly. You'd have somebody coming in and killing you and taking your gold. So they take it to the goldsmiths. And then they found out that the goldsmiths figured, well, they're not taking out all the gold, I can just take this gold and loan it to somebody else at interest. So, you have all the gold in the village, you start loaning out at interest, pretty soon you're going to own the entire village. And you're going to be making money out of nothing, it's going to cause a lot of inflation. So now, fast forward, now we have the Federal Reserve System, which was based on that, because everybody takes their money, puts it in a 10% reserve, and then they loan out the other 90%. And this is a horrible idea because it's going to cause massive inflation. You can just look at it right now. The Federal Reserve stopped publishing the M3 monetary aggregate, which doesn't make any sense. The reason why they did it, and you can find this on Fed.gov, it's March 31st, they said it's too expensive to figure it out.
Interesting. So that the thing that we could maybe look at as a number, this M3 would tell us how much money they've created.
Yeah.
Which would basically tell us how little our money is going to buy in the future, because the more money they create, what happens to the dollars that I have in my wallet?
Well, what happens is that when you're printing currency, and right now they figured out it's at about a 12% rate, somebody reconstructed it, and if you have, let's say you have a 3% or a 4% growth rate in your GDP, or let's do an island. You have an island with 100 chickens and 100 gold coins. If 3 chickens are born and you add 12 gold coins to your supply, you're going to have, what, 9 gold coins too many, and all the chickens are going to cost $1.90 instead of, a gold coin and 9 cents instead of what it cost before. Nice. And that's inflation. That's the fundamental of inflation. So right now we have, when they were publishing it from 2001 till now, they were growing at something like an 8 or 9% rate, with a 3.5% growth of economy. And meanwhile, so that equals what, 4 or 5% inflation. But the Fed is saying that there's only 2% inflation.
Now, as a quick one, I had done this show on money, and the one thing that I noticed with it, and at least the Federal Reserve being the private bank, and just the fact that they're allowed to make all this, when I say make money from nothing, okay, there is no reserve now, so they're just printing up this money. What bothered me was we as citizens have to pay taxes to pay for that, the interest on that money.
Yeah.
And the comedy I found was when I read the Federal Reserve Act, that Article 7, or the 7th section down, Part C said that they don't have to pay any federal, state, or local taxes.
Oh, it's insane. They also can't be audited. It's actually a law that they can't be audited.
How do you like that? We got a private bank issuing our currency, and they make trillions of dollars, yet they pay no taxes. Do you pay taxes?
I do.
I pay taxes too.
I don't like
I'm sure most
taxes.
of the people here in Boston pay taxes, let alone New York and maybe the other major metros, let alone even the little farmer guy gets squeezed for some form of tax. But the people that make our money from nothing pay no taxes. Ouch.
It's pretty crazy.
That hurts me.
The whole trust system, like the Carnegie Endowment, the Rockefeller Fund, was made just before income tax. They invented that structure so that all of the really super rich people could take their money, put it into a tax-free shelter so it doesn't get taxed, and then take that money and use it to pay for social control and manipulation.
That's pretty deep. Now we know it. See, maybe you guys are going to get the real story out of this. Aren't you glad you came to Faneuil Hall?
To take back our country, we demand the truth.
During that 9/11 Commission report where they threw it in the drink at the Tea Party, I had a great opportunity. I was one of the first people to, on video, interview a former air traffic controller who worked out of Boston. His name's Robin Horton, and you'll see and you'll learn what I learned that day. Not only that things had changed as far as what the FAA was required to do under an emergency condition, but more importantly that he said within 4 hours of the event he knew it was an inside job. Listen to what he says. Listen to why an air traffic controller who worked at Boston Logan knew within a short amount of time that something was seriously wrong.
Why are they not giving you and us the tapes, the data, the radar information? Why aren't they? Because if they do, they're gone.
Name, I'm Daniel Hapney.
Robin Horton.
Robin Horton, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
And how is it that you are so wise in the ways of guidance and radar and air traffic?
What's that?
How is it that you know so much about air traffic control?
I am an air traffic controller.
Thank you.
Yeah. Right.
It's a good
Or
thing.
I
I'm a pilot. And you guys have
Yeah.
been good to me.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining.
Yeah, right.
You know?
And you got
I'm a
involved.
pilot too.
Good man.
Yeah, I got 1,600 hours.
I
I found out
searched your
about
name.
pilots at 9/11 Truth, and I felt that that was an organization of people that I could have an articulate conversation with, because we could bounce information back and forth. And believe me, they still, no offense, they still don't know what we do and how we do it. So I'm just painstakingly going on saying, okay, this is what we do, and this is the procedures, regardless of what you were saying. You know, like one guy was saying, he says, I find it highly suspicious that this air traffic control American 77 turned him 10 degrees right. What's that for? You know, all of these can of worms. And I'm sitting there saying, man, you don't even friggin' know. Is that explained? I said, look, you're on your way to 39,000 feet. You're westbound, okay? I happen to see an airplane that's going to absolutely cross you, okay? And I'm going to either have to level you off underneath him, okay, whatever. And so what I do is I just turn you a few degrees this way. You swing behind him by 8 miles, 10 miles. You never stop your climb. No big issue. Fuel is saved. Everybody's happy. Direct flight. Bah, 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 bah. So the pilots don't get the whole situation. So I'm kind of I'm kind of de-scrambling that. What I do know is the transcripts that have been released of that flight have been cherry-picked to make a story that the federal government wants us to believe. That hasn't necessarily been there. If 77 did not hit the Pentagon, where is it? We know that there's a plane down in Pennsylvania, and there are reports of another plane landing in Cleveland, or some other place. Okay, so we also know that the Air Force uses Boeing, that was a 767 or 757, a 757. They use 757s for tankers and other type of things.
Yep.
Also, people say, I talked to a guy who says that the particular numbers of that craft are still in use.
That's right.
That's what they say on loose change.
Hello.
I know somebody.
Okay, so the point I'm trying to say to you, man, this whole thing is framed. It's American 11, American 77. That's what it is. The two Uniteds in the middle, okay, whatever it might be, and I'll tell you a story about the United that I'll steer you to, but in Pennsylvania. But in any event, that's the story. And American 11, I found out all the way tracked 100% of the way into the friggin' WTC-1. And so for air traffic controllers not to be screaming their lungs out, they already announced it was heading to New York. We're smart people. They're smart people. They're saying this is not good. For you to think that they're sitting there not reacting or as being unprofessional is preposterous. It's preposterous. It's like a pilot losing an engine and saying, well.
Lauren. And that even if those were the actual aircraft and there really were hijackers on those planes, there's still the evidence of who was controlling those hijackers, who were they working for?
Right.
Yeah, manipulating them. Ultimately.
And once again, a silly thing, just as a person used to build and test weapon systems, those planes have been able to fly themselves for a long time.
All the time.
Yeah, they've been able to. No, not just remote. And with telemetry, they can. Exactly.
They're called kind of flight directors or whatever it might be, and that's what they say. Oh, they couldn't have hit them. Well, it's great flying. The only great flying was 70, whatever hit the Pentagon did some real good maneuvering. The rest of the stuff, all of those other airplanes, you just simply sit back and you put in some coordinates, and it takes you from here to there to there.
At every check and waypoint you want.
And you put in some altitudes, and that whole flight director will take you right to that point.
Right. Are there no safeguards to keep you from going into buildings?
Now you're looking for a forward-looking radar that interprets what it sees.
Yeah.
They make that for other stuff.
I see. Okay.
What woke you up? What made you decide that something's not right? What was the thing smelled wrong? Got you out here today?
I knew 4 hours after 9/11 that it was an inside job. You just don't go running down the street 4 hours after 9/11 saying it's inside job, inside job. There is no way. This movement needed to grow along. All of my progressive friends that I've been in contact with for years and years and years who have been talking behind this, we knew it's been an inside job for an age. But people had to start to grab different elements until it started to get to be a little bit more mainstream, because I was fired by Reagan. I don't want to be running down the street looking at it as though I'm a vendetta or whatever it might be. It's got
I remember
nothing to
those,
do with
yeah.
that, yeah. The only thing that delayed in the 4 hours was, okay, the only way that this could have happened, okay, without NORAD being engaged in the situation, the only way was to have a massive electrical failure. Because I was actually controlling airplanes when a backhoe did the, oh geez, I dug up the wrong cable thing when we lost everything. That happens. That happens, okay? Right. And I'm sitting there saying the only way that craft could get through past NORAD is for
through everybody.
A massive failure. Then I'm seeing on TV, and we lost contact here, and there's radar sound. I'm saying, oh, okay, they got the information. Follow my point? In other words, the FAA leaked that information out, which meant that it wasn't a massive electrical failure. Right. And I said, that's it.
So standard operating procedure is for the FAA, right, to call NORAD. Right?
Yeah.
And then NORAD,
supposing that it was part of the mass
standard operating procedure for them is to respond to the call for distress from the FAA.
That is correct.
Okay. And
there are intelligent people
right.
taking a look at each situation and seeing if it qualifies for a scramble.
That's right.
But it's not done through the Pentagon. It's
done
locally.
Exactly.
Right. So the FAA followed its standard operating procedures on 9/11 and called NORAD.
Whoa.
Okay.
Standard operating procedures on 911 had been changed in June.
Okay.
That's a key point.
They followed the new procedures, which was to call for a scramble through the Pentagon. The Pentagon didn't answer the phone call.
For the FAA to call the Pentagon.
The FAA had to call the Pentagon.
Instead of going straight, yeah.
All right.
Okay.
But
So
you know,
my statement is, if we get, because I know air traffic controllers, if we get the tapes from that sector that aren't spliced, diced, modified, you're going to find out that center controller, that radar controller, was on the phone to Otis, to here, to there, to NORAD, to all of these people saying, get this target, boom, 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 I'm in trouble here. This is way before it was even considered to be a hijack. It's the hijack protocol that goes to the Pentagon and over, except for the hijack protocol was made the emergency protocol in June.